So I'll just briefly start off by introducing myself. So I'm Sangita, I lead the design operations team here. And what that means, a lot of people might not know what design operations is. What I really do is I help designers focus on the design work. And they don't have to worry about their practices or processes that help them do that effectively. So in turn, what this actually means is that it helps to optimize the way the design team can function across the business at scale. So in this workshop, I'll walk you through some of these practices that have actually helped our designers stay close to the business problem as we grow. So this was us like 2 years ago, and now we were like 6 people then. Now we grew into a team of 30. And when we started off like this, the way we designed our process to focus on business problems was completely different. Everything happened much more organically because we were like a smaller team. When we did problem understanding and framing, this was usually just a quick conversation with the product manager and a couple of other people who were interested in the project. Hallway conversations and simultaneously designing and coding with developers was how we used to collaborate. And we would also showcase our work by just walking up to the founders and just showing them what we're working on, which I'm sure that you probably know, that's how you're probably doing now anyway. And measuring was just something unheard of. We never used to measure at that time. Huh? Yeah. Okay, so, but now as we've grown, now we've become like a 350 strength organization. Some of these practices started to become a little unsustainable. But at the same time, we didn't want to lose focus of what was actually important to us as designers. So our beliefs of framing the problem, collaborating to solve, selling our work, and measuring outcomes. Because this worked really well for us when we were a smaller team. And it enabled us to actually make lasting business impact. So we then started to operationalize some of these methods. So when we started doing this now meant that problem framing was making sure we were getting the right inputs from the stakeholders and that we were solving the problems by putting it in the context of business value. I'm just going to use this. Collaborating to solve became all about opening up and making design accessible to everyone in the company. It meant like unraveling the black box of design. And we started enabling platforms and having conversations for people to start participating in our design work and make sure that we were considered throughout the whole delivery lifecycle. Selling your work started drawing to parallels to storytelling and best practices and how we put design on a larger stage and to a bigger audience. And then it became important to measure success or failure in the context of the business problem that we're trying to solve. And finally, we tied all of this together by managing it in the design process that we follow today. So what we'll do now is that we'll deep dive into each of these methods and we'll figure out how we can solve problems by keeping business in mind. So let's start with problem framing. So as a designer, how do you know that you're working on the right problem? So what you might do, you might talk to a couple of users, you might have a discussion with a couple of your colleagues, but what you're essentially doing here is finding the problem. And problem finding has no opinion. People are just describing the problem, the user goals, and their pain points. And based on some of this, some of you might come up with a couple of solutions. But what's actually important here is how you look at the problem. Are you focused on the right issue? Is everyone on your team aligned on the same page on how they perceive the problem? And how does it even resonate with the point of view of business? So this is where problem framing becomes important. And this can influence the solution that you come up with in the end. So this is an example of that happening. So you may have seen this before. It was done by the Harvard Business Review. So imagine that you're the owner of a building and the tenants are complaining about the lift. It's old and they have to wait a lot. So one obvious way of looking at the problem is that the elevator is too slow. So some of the solutions that might come to mind are installing a new lift or upgrading the motor. But if we reframe the problem to talk about the wait time, and that suggests that the wait time is annoying, it proposes a different understanding. So solutions like putting up mirrors or playing music to pass that time sort of seem to fit better. So one way we use InChargeMe to help us see different perspectives of a problem is by using Bain's Elements of Value. This shows us different business contexts and helps us to understand the value we're trying to target with our design solution. So for example, if I'm a bootstrap startup, my focus might be on the take stakes. My offering has to meet basic specifications and be at the acceptable price for customers to even want to use my product. But as I grow more, I might invest more in my offering in terms of support availability or enabling faster workflows and reducing effort. So another way in InChargeMe that we try to frame the problem is by harnessing the power of inquiry, as Praveen mentioned, by asking the right questions. So we do this during what we call our feature kickoff sessions with our product managers. And in this, we use our outline of our problem framing canvas, which is going to be naked. And during these sessions, some of the questions that we might start off by asking are, why is this feature important for business? What are the key problems we're trying to solve? And what's the perceived change or value we're trying to bring by doing this? So by doing this, we actually arrive at like a common project vision, and we frame the problem from a business perspective. Okay, so now let's start our first activity. So you have a problem framing canvas in your kit. It looks a bit like an A3 sheet. You guys can just get to tell. It's just one per team. So we only need to fill in 2 sections of this, because usually this is like a 1 or 2 hour activity if we do it exhaustively. So we'll just need to fill in the framings part and why are we doing this part, these 2 sections. So this is the problem statement. So we want to reframe this in the context of business. So I'll just read it out. So not enough customers are upgrading to higher plans in a B2B tech company. And the business is targeting a 2x growth in revenue for all paid plans. So this is intentionally vague. It's intentionally it's not properly framed. So in your groups, there's a couple of us around from ChargeMe, so you can ask us questions. So in these groups, try and fill in those sections and try and frame it and how it can add value to the business. So we'll just be around. We have like 10 minutes. So we'll just be around if you have any questions.
We were looking at the problem statement, which is basically customers not having a reason to upgrade to the paid plans. And we thought maybe because there isn't a context of the domain on the surface of the product, we thought it could be a few of the reasons for it. It could be their differentiation was not significant. Maybe the free plans was enough. The cost could be one of the factors. Relevance to the users could be another factor. And so competitors, just understanding what the companies are providing us, why they are successful. Just to stop short. And so this is what we framed. We said to create compelling differentiators between plans to make more customers move to the higher plans effectively considered.
So the value, the business value you're trying to bring is differentiation from the market.
Plans, causing them to give a compelling reason.
Cool. Anyone else want to read out the framings?
We do. So what we come up as one is where either are happy with the free ride, and the second part is more on maybe so the customization for the paid plans. So maybe something which is not for a business I need. So that is one more. And the pricing part. Second one is some paid plans have different functionalities or features which the user is not aware, so I'll not be subscribing to it.
Okay.
So these are the two things which we come at. And also the cost factor,
Yeah.
competitive pricing.
Yes.
The business objectives. Yeah.
So adding to this, I thought the product as such should be premium for the user for him to upgrade. So it should make him feel that it is making him smarter.
Okay.
It is useful for him. So in that point of view, if it is going to give him something, he's not going to hesitate to upgrade his plan. So you have to make the user smarter by how by the way he's using the application.
Okay, so I'd say you're framing more is on terms of the functionality of the offering on the different plans. So it's a basic table state, so the functionality is not us. So we'll show you what we came up with for the same problem. So this is an example of a fairly acceptable framing.
Aware of what features.
Customers are not aware of what features are available in the higher plans, and because of this, they assume there isn't enough value for them to upgrade. So they upsell the plan more. The solution might be to upsell the plan more, or highlight features, or send emails, or in-app communication. But then again, we can feel that this is in the context of the business problem, because sometimes the effect of this is it annoys customers. It affects the brand image if you're constantly sending emails. So this is what we would say was a better framing. Customers do not know where to navigate within the app to upgrade the plan. The upgrade option is a few levels in the settings and requires effort to find. So the solution might be reduce effort for the customer and improve discoverability of where to upgrade their plan from. And another framing for the same problem could be customers are worried there isn't enough information about what happens to the data in their system once they upgrade to a new plan. So the solution would be clearer information in the app about the consequences of upgrading. So you might wonder which of these framings should I pick, and I'd say this relates back to the business value you're trying to bring and the elements of value pyramid we showed earlier. So if we take the first framing of the customer not being able to find where the upgrade is in the app, the focus is on the value of reducing user effort. So reducing effort is very important. It's a business problem that the business wants to solve across the product. The second framing is about the customer not knowing what will happen to their data. And so this framing is set in the context of providing transparency and more information to the user. So depending on what your business is focusing on, depending on what language your executives are speaking, you can choose the right framing. Okay, so move on. So you plan to take a break here, so do you guys want to continue or we can do a break later? What do you feel? We can continue? So let's move on to solutioning together. So design is not too important to be left just to designers. This is famously stated by Tim Brown of IDEO. But speaking realistically, collaboration can be very difficult. You're trying to bring together people with different perspectives and different priorities, and this is a huge challenge. But also the alternative of working in silos is also impossible. And in ChargeBee, we've had many challenges of doing this. So some mistakes that we made in the past includes taking things too late to engineering. And by doing this, we don't understand the feasibility of the solution. So questions like, do we have APIs to support this, or does the technical architecture fit this design that we're proposing? These come up too late after we've invested our time in design. So then we're forced to go back to the drawing board. And working like this has an impact on the value we're trying to bring on business, because we're not able to solve problems effectively and efficiently. So some of the roles that we collaborate with, it's really important for us to work with these roles, are like the customer-facing functions, like the support and the customer success teams in B2B companies. So if you take the support team, why we work with them is because they're in the right position to understand customer and business challenges, because they're always communicating with customers. and they can provide us insights such as, hey, in this part of the project we're getting 2 times more support tickets on average than the rest of the project. Obviously, another role we work with are the project managers. Essentially, for us, they're the voice of the business, and they have a very deep understanding of the domain. And for us, they're just more than people who hand over requirements and leave designers to just work away in the black box. We actually collaborate with them through having work sessions, and in these, what we do is we show them multiple approaches of solving the same problem. And this actually helps us to reach a compromise, and also it helps us together identify opportunities which we wouldn't have done if we had worked by ourselves. And we also use tools like Jira and Confluence, which I'm sure you're all aware of, to keep them updated about our progress and where we stand. And similarly, we work with the engineering and QA teams. We try to involve them throughout the design process to help us spot any dependencies. And we also try to keep an eye on our work after we're done with the design. So we do this by doing things like regular check-ins with the QA and engineering teams to see if there are any challenges in implementation, and to make sure that the solution that they're actively coding is shaping up to be the experience that we had intended, we had designed for. So when we do all this, we actually inadvertently start building empathy for our work as designers. We align teams, and then we start cultivating ownership amongst a lot of people. And we make sure that all of us are on the same team, and we're all driving towards the same business vision. Okay, so let's quickly do our next activity. So we want you to identify some solutions that you might come up with for this problem. So we can just jump directly into solutions. What we'll be doing is we'll be handing out cards with different perspectives as you do the activity. So a card from each different team in the company of what someone might say about this problem. And you can just write down or sketch how your solution might change with this new information. So the problem is this: the customers of a B2B app, you can take any B2B app, they want an easy way to cancel their account. And currently they have to call support, and they're not happy with this experience. So does anyone have any questions on this problem statement? Okay. So we have pieces of paper on the table. Just figure out, you can draw rough wireframes or just write down your solutions. How might you solve this with this information? You have 2 minutes to come up with your first solution.
What we had was make it easier for the users to cancel.
Yeah.
We also want the cancellation to be upfront. Because we want to be hiding something so that for the business also it will be. For the business, the users, they don't know the users to cancel.
Yeah.
So we created, in the My Account page, we created 2 buttons.
Okay.
Like one is to, do you want to?
We can just walk through how did your solution evolve? Yeah, how did it evolve from the first engineering to the migration to success team? What was your thought process?
The first engineering, right?
Yeah.
So they asked us to build a cancellation form, and that's exactly what we did. And the form fields we included one is the reason, which is a call out, most of the common reason we included.
Yeah.
And then maybe a custom field where they can add.
Yeah.
Then there is a form field where they can explain the reason.
Okay.
We will ask them if they want a form or just give me the time scale.
Okay.
Maybe the number I think we will yes.
So when you got your next cards, how did you?
Business, right?
Yeah. Well, from your customer success card and your data migration. How did your solution change?
Yeah, the success team is we need to understand why our customer decided to cancel. So in the form itself, we ask us to write about the problem, and also along with that we are having a follow-up option. So if our customer want to know, they will be giving that follow-up option. So we solve it in the form itself. Then the next is business.
Okay.
Many customers okay, then data migration.
Yeah.
So once they fill up this cancellation form, the last step we ask them, we have their live data.
Yeah.
We will help them to migrate to some other country.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's-
we will give them the option.
Okay. Guys, can you all listen to the solution?
Finally, we got many customers decide to cancel their subscription because they are not ready to launch their product. So we got two solutions for it. One in the My Account page is along with the cancellation, cancel My Account. We introduce a post My Account option, but they can post the subscription for a period.
Yeah.
And along with that, once they click the cancellation and given the reason that I don't need this for some time or something like that, we will again urge the user to post that.
Nice. Anyone else want to talk about the solutions? Because
Yeah. So I think it was evident that we have to give a very good exit experience for any customer. Why? Because the business is very clear, the customer is going to come back. So it's highly important that we take care of exit procedure, and it has got to be very smooth, right? Now, when we look from that perspective, we observe that based on the type of user you are, right? Because some people are just at free usage level, that means the amount of data and the transactions they have done are minimal. Then maybe some users are using it heavily, so that their data and transactions are more, on the app side. So now, based on the intensity of the usage or the customer, the experience has to be according, right? If the intensity is less, then you can enable him to cancel and exit just through a form, but also capture what the success team wants in terms of if they had any bad experience. But if the intensity of the usage and the user has been more and the data has been deciding more, it is very important to give them a safe exit, because it is also important to safeguard their data security policies and procedures, so that they trust the product and come back again, both in terms of security. So we felt that exit process can be dynamic in nature based on the intensity of the usage of the user.
right. So how did the solution shape up?
So if your intensity is less, I think you should allow them to exit through the form. But if the intensity is more, form in terms of acknowledging that we are acknowledging you're exiting, but I think let us complete these procedures so that you safely exit out of the platform through a call, through meetings, and that's where success teams and other teams can jump in and figure out, hey, was there any bad experience? That the customer is it just an implicit need, or there can be needs or there can be problems that they don't want to, talk explicitly, and that's what success teams would want to figure out. So as the complexity changes, I think it's important to engage deeply.
So your solution was more focused on understanding the usage of the customer with the app throughout their journey.
Right.
And then depending on that, if you think they may be at a risk of cancelling, their experience might vary.
Right.
Yeah, but at the same time, keeping that in mind that for us that process has to be much more simpler, more than the user. So making sure which process matters, which doesn't. We do provide the customer with the things that he wants, certain things that he can have, so he can come back anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't want the users to keep thinking, hey, I want to cancel, now I want to get onto the phone, how long is it going to happen, I don't know. But if there is a form by which we are acknowledging that yes, we are taking your request for cancellation, but considering the intensity of your usage and data, let us follow these procedures. That gives them confidence that this platform is safe for me, and they're also helping me to exit. There are no hassles.
Right. You had a
So I would like to define the user here before continuing how we started something. So the user here, he is not ready with his product yet, but he wants to cancel his subscription to this product, and he's not happy with customer support. So when they gave the first card, we thought, okay, he's not happy with customer support, so self-serving, one-time act of he should just cancel and mind his business. That would be, in that case, he will be happy and we get feedback from the form. But when the second card came, so it was clear that we need more data from the user, so we have to schedule a call or we have to try to be in touch with the user. So when we got the third card, data migration team, we know that how important it is for the company to talk to the customers. And in that case, we were sure that there should be a call and we should get more data for our user to serve the users. The fourth one was regarding the business. So here the user, so it was evident that the user wants to cancel because he is not ready for the product. So in that case, we thought the solution would be we should retain the data but then suspend the account so that we should keep the user reminded that we are here for serving them whenever they are ready. So retaining the data but yet cancelling or suspending their account will help them, and also scheduling a call along with it whenever he is ready. This one we can.
Nice. Do you guys also want to share?
Actually, we thought it would be better if we have something like a chat board, so that it would make the process very easier. For example, we would start like say we have some questions before we want to cancel, so we like to answer something like that. And further from that, we can ask questions based on each teams, from success teams, and so can you describe in few words what's the main reason we want to cancel? And so from that, you can ask each team based questions like do they have a product or is the product economic or something? So that we can get the whole data with this hassle, so that they don't want to see a form and they don't want to track each thing.
Yeah.
So it will be easier for them.
Alright. Cool. Let's move on to the next part. And let's talk about selling your work. Okay, so now that you've arrived at a couple of solutions, one question that you might have as designers is, how do I tell people that my work is more than just mock-ups or wireframes? How do we showcase to our directors and our CXOs the impact that design can then have on business? So this is where the power of storytelling comes in. So in ChargeBrief, what we do is we utilize story documents as a vehicle to a larger audience. So when we do this, we actually keep the customer at the center of the story. We talk about problems we are solving for them, their challenges and their experiences with our product, and the possible solutions that we have considered for them. And then we always tie this back to business value. Because when we do this, it resonates with everyone in the audience. It resonates with the designers, it resonates with the product managers, and importantly, it resonates with our senior executives. And ultimately, our business is solving a problem for a customer, so we have to do this. So what I'll do is I'll quickly run through an example of a story document we might have done for a similar problem to this account cancellation example. So what we usually do is we start off by describing the problem statement. What's the current setup? Why does it exist? What happens in the system? And what's actually currently missing from the experience? And then we talk about why this problem matters to business. Why are we doing this feature? And the business problem we're essentially trying to address. And then we get on to the personas and we sort of describe the different personas and the sort of behavior we expect from them in this particular feature. And then we go on to talk about little bit about the current experiences in the app and the challenges that have been identified for both the users and our internal teams. And then we go into lots of detailed analysis and research. So we look at data, we look at support tickets, we look at user session recordings with tools like FullStory. So here's some examples of that. So we start analyzing how other companies have solved the problem. And for this specific example, we analyzed the reason breakdown from our cancellation tickets to see if there was a deeper rooted problem. And we then map them to possible outcomes and opportunities. And then we go on to the approaches we propose. So actually the solutioning comes at the end because we're setting the groundwork for how we got to our solution. So based on the different business objectives that we might want to achieve, we come up with two different approaches, like different approaches for each business objective. And we also sort of talk about their limitations as well. And then finally, we showcase our mockups and the flow that we decide on. So we have a template for you, and in fact, we'll give you at the end, on how we can go about constructing story documents. So you can take that away. You can feel free to make changes to the templates and see how it works for you. And this can really help you write better stories on any feature that you might work on and present them to your teams. Okay, so let's move on to measuring. I think one of you had a question at the beginning about how we measure. So now we're at the stage of you completed all your designs, you handed it over to the engineering, it's probably even gone to production. But how do you know if your solutions and approach really worked or not? Did it save you time? Did your feature make you any money? And how do you know if your business objective was really met? So this is exactly why it's measured. So this is one way we recommend to measure business impact in ChargeBee, is to see if whatever you're making is either making you money or saving you money. So for example, if you're spending time working on enabling processes and encouraging collaborations within your team, is it actually helping your team ship more features on time? So what you're actually doing now is in essence, you're able to do more with the team that you have. Another way to see if your features helped your business make money is, for example, has the new onboarding experience increased conversion and reduced drop-offs during sign-up. So these metrics can be categorized into direct and indirect impact. So direct impact is when there's a direct correlation between your work and the money for your business. Indirect impact is often dependent on something else. So for example, if you improve NPS scores, this may increase word of mouth, which in turn then drives up your sales conversion. But it's always important to measure against your business objectives. So in ChargeBee, we always measure what's really important to the business problem. So for example, a business objective could be to enable your customers on a free plan to migrate their data from another tool to your app by themselves and reduce effort. So you might measure whether the workflow you designed saves time for people importing data into your system and your teams. Okay, so we'll do another quick 5-minute activity. So this is an individual activity. I think we only have one per pack. So you can take out this sheet, measuring outcome sheet. I think there's only one, so we'll do it as a team anyway. So if you take the account cancellation example, what do you think? You just take what you think might be relevant to measure for this example. We have 5 minutes to do this. Who wants to go first? What would you measure for account cancellation? This one go? Come on, someone volunteer. Okay, I'm going to pick on people. Why don't you go?
So actually, the question is what is not important. Everything is important. So if you see which is more important, what are the things to see first, then I would go for more of what are the indirect impacts of making money, like usability, retention, engagement, which we need to focus more. So these are the factors that will affect it as a long run. So once the indirect impacts are strong enough, get brand perception, create satisfaction, I guess conversion rate, growth, it all comes, it will be there, is what I feel.
Right. Okay.
But I feel everything is just equally important.
So, if you take a business problem that we were solving, so the problem was that people were not ready. Right? So, how does that tie in with the framework? Is that that was more of a churn problem? So you would say that again, brand perception, NPS, all of this indirectly affects churn. Okay. Anyone else? What about you guys?
Still, I'm not clear about the how what.
Hmm?
I'm not clear about the how what. How do we discuss?
Alright, okay, we'll cover that. What about you guys?
So, what we thought about what effect it will have in making money, the direct is the growth. So it has a direct effect on growth. That's how it affects our business to make money. And the indirect in making money is pretty much all the offers that we use. Not everything. We feel everything has an indirect effect. Pretty much not 100%, but at least there's a very significant percentage of impact.
Okay.
And in saving money, the direct impact would be support and service. And the indirect would be training time, collaboration, and processes that we build in order to ensure that the entire process is in place.
How about you guys? Did you manage to come up with anything?
Actually, we said chatbot, right? So, if you use chatbot, it will directly track the support and service. So, it will save a lot of time so that we can collect data directly from the chatbot.
Okay.
And it will indirectly impact the process, maintenance, training time, and all that. So, it's also a lot of work. And when it comes to making money, we can have a value of NPS, it will help in some way, and we can also have a brand perception of the users think about it, and that's the main.
Okay, so I think most of you covered some of the things we also had in mind. For us, when we did this problem, one thing that we would primarily measure is retention. Because the problem statement was that people are not ready the business objective was that people are not ready at the moment. So how many of the people who are not ready are we actually retaining as customers for the future? So one solution we came up with was having a pause function. I think you guys also mentioned the pause function, right? So these customers are automatically deterred from canceling their account. Other things that we also came up with again was usability, like a couple of you mentioned. How easy is it for customers to cancel? The customer satisfaction and the brand perception as well. How do users perceive the brand? Is the brand transparent in the ability to cancel? And are people even satisfied with the cancellation experience? The initial problem statement talked about how they were dissatisfied that they had to go through something. And another thing we could also measure was, again, saving money by measuring support and service. So how much time is spent by the support teams on servicing cancellation requests. Again, this was another. measuring outcomes. But it's impossible to do all this unless you manage your projects. And managing covers a lot of areas apart from what we just talked about. It covers how do we go about project planning and estimation and our resource allocation. How do we document our projects? How do we partner with other functions to understand and address customer problems through support tickets or NPS analysis? And how can we work with marketing on the PR angle of a feature we're trying to develop? Are we telling them the right stories that they need to hear? And even things like, do we understand like what the right tooling is to enable our workflows to become faster and work more efficiently with other teams? And how do we even report back on all of this to everyone in the organization? So in Charge, we are defining a process that tries to bring all of this together. We start off by sprint planning. And in this, what we do is we identify what features we'll pick up during a sprint. We estimate the size and we figure out who in the team will be working on each item in the sprint. And then we also define our review and handover dates. And we publish them and they make them very transparent to all the teams. And for this, we use our project planning templates and our design estimation skill, which you'll find in your kit. Then comes the kickoffs. The kickoffs between the designers and all the other stakeholders, so PMs and the engineers, and we all come together collectively to understand and frame the problem. And this is where we use our problem framing canvas. Then we have something which we call as a readiness check. This happens before our first review, when we bring in everyone. We come together as a product design team, and we walk through the story documents that we prepared. And we make sure that we've covered all of the points in our story documents in our review checklist, which is again in your packet. Then we take this to the approach validation. And this is where we sell our work. We present our story documents here to our larger audience. So everyone from the company tries to attend these sessions, and we make sure that we're trying to think about the problem in the right way. So after this, the designers again collaboratively work on their features, and before that we come together again and we have another readiness check where we again use our checklist, and we see if we're ready to present our high fidelity mockups. And then we showcase this to a larger audience in our internal review. So one feature probably gets shown around the company at least 2 times in one cycle. And here we actually actively encourage feedback from different stakeholders. I mean, we encourage it throughout the process, but this is a platform for everyone to do that. And then we work on the comments, and then before that, before we actually hand over, we do an internal check within our team to see if the UI is compliant with our design system standards. And when we hand over, we give the story documents and the mockups together. And finally, after the handover, and once the solution is in the hands of the customer, we start measuring success. So now, throughout this whole process, we're actually constantly collaborating and managing our projects. We have active work sections, we write documents, we report on our progress, and we're also identifying new tools. We have people who identify new tools that can help us work better. Okay, so this is coming to the end of my talk. So this is some of our learnings over the past few years, what's worked for us, how we've developed and grown as a team to deal with the scale of how we're operating now. This is how we work now to make an impact on business, and we hope that some of it we found useful, some of it you can try and take away and practice at your own company. So try it out, let us know how you get on. We'd love to learn from all of you. And we're also here to help if any of you have any questions. So see how it works to help you elevate design as a business practice. So handing over to Praveen.